Hi there, I'm Sean McCormick, the founder of Ealing Wildlife Group, and thank you for asking me to speak about the wildlife we have on the River Brent. The Brent River Park is something that we are very, very lucky to have in Ealing because it does act as an incredible wildlife corridor through the borough, and there's amazing habitats, around the riverside as well that support a variety of species, from everything tiny like invertebrates and fungi up to birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians. So hoping to show you some exciting sights as I take a walk from here in Perryvale down to Hanwell. I've just come from Greenford and walked down to Bitterns Field, and this section of the Brent is a real hidden gem that not many people know about, and I always think you could be anywhere in the country. Definitely has a feeling of being out in the countryside, and we're just so lucky to have this right on our doorsteps. So I want to get serious just for 1 minute, I promise. There are lots of outflow pipes on the Brent that are discharging water, wastewater and drainage water into our river. And one thing that I always notice about the Brent when I look closely is the lack of fish. They are just very, very hard to find. There's a few stretches with, a good level of weed and underwater vegetation that hold a few fish, but as a river, it is lacking in fish, and that's down to water quality. All of the other lower areas of the food web, so from your river flies and invertebrates that fish feed on, all build the base of the food chain. And when water quality is poor, that base of the food chain is pretty sparse, and then all life above it, your fish and your birds and things, are pretty much struggling as well. So although we do occasionally see a kingfisher on the Brent, I think the kingfishers have a fairly hard time feeding, with the lack of fish there. So we can definitely improve, and I think with cases like this where there are outflows and sometimes pollution incidents, we need to get better at, number one, reporting those, but also fixing the problem. I don't know the solution. A lot of you guys are far more expert than me, but I do always think it's a sad state of affairs that the water quality in the Brent is at times pretty poor, and the lack of fish for me is something that really says we need to do better. So I've just bumped into two Ealing Wildlife Group members on the walk, and they have just told me this is the stretch where they regularly see kingfisher, and while I'm looking, I've just seen a pair of grey wagtails downstream too. One of the most exciting visitors we have to the Brent Park each year is the hobby, which is a small migratory falcon, a smaller cousin of the peregrine falcon, and it feeds mainly on dragonflies over water and also swifts and swallows, one of the few birds of prey that is fast enough to catch swifts. And a pair of them have bred along the Brent in Ealing, at least one pair if not two, for many years, and at this location near to where I am now, I confirmed they had 2 chicks last year and 2 chicks this year that successfully fledged. And a few months ago I filmed an amazing piece of footage, I think, of the adults mobbing a red kite that got too close to the nest. Have a look. Red kite. There's the hobby. Dive bombing red kite. Look. Incredible. Wow. Going again. Wow. Two. There's two. Now standing on Bowles Bridge, and you can hear the planes going overhead, but Bowles Bridge is a great place to see bats in the evening. In the summertime, we often bring Ealing Wildlife Group members here to look at bats. It's not just the River Brent that's important for biodiversity in Ealing, it's the surrounding habitat as well. And this area just adjacent to Bowles Meadow, which is one of Ealing Wildlife Group's earliest conservation projects, is a hotspot for hedgehogs, one of our most rapidly declining mammals. But here in the Brent Lodge Park, with all the amazing parkland and woodland habitat around it, it is a real hotspot for hedgehogs. So head on down here in the evenings if you want to see a hedgehog in Ealing. So all along the Brent, Ealing Council and Ealing Wildlife Group have put up bat boxes, just like this one behind me, to provide roosting space for bats during the summer and breeding season. In the winter time, they need a slightly different type of roost, which is called a hibernation roost, that needs to maintain a very cold temperature. And I'm going to bring you now to a place that is rumoured to be one of the biggest bat hibernation roosts in the south of England. We've talked about water quality being an issue for the invertebrate life in the river bed here, and all of the layers of the food chain up from that, from, you know, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, things like that. Another habitat that's really important in the Brent for certain species and is somewhat degraded in a lot of places is the edge habitat, so the bankside system. And unfortunately, you know, it's at times degraded by what we've done to the river over the years, straightening it and taking out some of the bends and causing a lot of erosion and steep sides. We seem to have lost water voles in Ealing, and water voles I would love to see back in Ealing, but I think we need to get better at managing the riverside bank systems, providing a lot of like varied vegetation, and on our canals as well, providing, you know, some sort of natural refuge and cover for water voles and all of the associated biodiversity that needs that kind of habitat as well. So we've come to the end of my tour. We're now at Hanwell Viaduct, or the Wharncliffe Viaduct in Hanwell. And this is quite an important place for Ealing Wildlife Group. It's where we kind of founded over a love of bats. And there's a little bit of an urban myth in Ealing about bats at the viaduct. On Wikipedia, it says that it could be, not that it is, but it could be one of the most important bat roosts in the south of England. That was quite unsubstantiated, so I'm sorry to burst that bubble. There have been some hibernation roost surveys done by London Bat Group and Ealing Wildlife Group and expert licensed ecologists that have looked inside the viaduct, which is this spooky looking place right here behind me, with a little grate going into the hollow space in the cavern of the viaduct on either end of the dip or the valley. And there are bats around here. It is good habitat for bats. We often find pipistrelles, common and soprano pipistrelles, here on our bat walks. We also, excitingly, there was a survey done, hibernation roost survey done inside, and there was a brown long-eared bat discovered hibernating on the wall inside the cavern of the viaduct. And the brown long-eared bat is actually a scarce species for London. So the viaduct is always a place that we like to take people to tell them about bats in Ealing and why bats are important. They're an indicator species for the ecology of a place. The more diversity of bat species you have in a habitat, the more biodiversity in general you have, because bats occupy different ecological niches. And the viaduct is good. It provides a lot of what bats need. It provides roosting space, though not in the numbers that Wikipedia would have you suggest. And it also provides lots of feeding ground, mainly with insects coming off the Brent. But as I say, if we don't do more for water quality in the Brent and increase the biodiversity in the water itself, then all other levels of the food chain outside of the River Brent itself also suffer. So to sign off, thank you again for having me speak. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm going to end with a little slideshow of some of the amazing wildlife species Ealing Wildlife Group members have posted to the group.